Hey, welcome to this edition of the 700 Club. It's a new week. Hi there.
Hi there. It is a new week.
It is a new week.
We're heading into some more heat here.
It's going to be brutal.
Speaking of heat, we've got some stuff.
You know, they say it's cooler. I mean, it's like 88 at, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. I mean, that ain't cool, let me tell you. And, we got a story about what's happening in the Midwest. It's really, really gross. But anyhow, do you know the United States government spends about $500 million of your taxpayer money on an organization called Planned Parenthood? Would you want your taxpayer dollars going to that organization? Well, voters across America say no. And now they're winning a growing number of victories.
That is right. Several states are stripping Planned Parenthood of taxpayer money, including Arizona. David Brody tells us about the pro-life triumphs in that state.
Yay.
The only thing hotter than the Arizona summer is what's happening inside the state legislature.
In Arizona, we've made considerable progress to protect life both of the preborn child and their mothers.
Kathy Herod leads the Center for Arizona Policy, a powerful force in pushing through pro-life legislation. Before taking on Planned Parenthood, Herod described herself as a liberal feminist. Then, Jesus changed her life.
As a mother, as a woman, when I see what abortion has done to women, what my concern for the future of my children and my grandchildren, how can I not be involved? Deborah in the book of Judges was a woman who awoke and arose in Israel and led the troops, and I feel that same calling.
Another person answering the call is Governor Jan Brewer. She's faced nasty criticism over her stand, but hasn't wavered.
It wasn't tough, really, for me, because I believe in what I believe. I believe in the right to life. And I know that so much was going on in our state as is going on in other states in regards to funding of Planned Parenthood. And I believed it was wrong. So it was not a difficult choice for me.
Other pro-life victories during Brewer's tenure include banning partial birth abortion, strengthening parental consent laws, and requiring ultrasounds before abortion. The victory over Planned Parenthood here in Arizona is just one of many pro-life victories here in this state. So why is that exactly? Why is Arizona leading the way when it comes to pro-life victories across the country? It has a lot to do with pro-family voters helping to change the legislature. In 2006, Arizona ranked near the bottom when it came to voter registration and turnout. Then, in 2008, a tide turned, resulting in hundreds of thousands of new voters showing up at the polls.
Starting in 2008, when Arizona passed a marriage amendment, values voters went to the polls, they passed the marriage amendment, and they started electing pro-life majorities to the Arizona legislature. What we see in Arizona is that voting does make a difference, of course. When you go and vote your values, then you literally can be saving lives.
Since then, Arizona consistently ranks in the top 20 states for voter turnout. The battle isn't over, however. Planned Parenthood vows to fight back against the movement taking away its money.
We want a right to make our own decisions, to have children when we choose, and children that we can care for. And by God, we are not going to go back to the 1950s in the United States of America.
One weapon is the website called Women Are Watching, which spreads a message to women that, quote, "We have been witnessing the most aggressive legislative attacks on women's health and rights in a generation." Kathy Herod calls her fight a personal one and says success is happening in Arizona for one reason.
It begins with prayer. Over a dozen years ago, we started really laying a foundation of prayer in this state to pray for good government.
David Brody, CBN News, in Phoenix, Arizona.
Isn't that interesting? Arizona's a terrific state, I think Scottsdale's probably the ideal place to retire. I don't know how the property values are, but it's a lovely city.
It is a beautiful state. Boy, they're going through a lot. I mean, they've been in the news a great deal this last year.
Well, they're very courageous, and they do what they've got to do to maintain their lifestyle and to keep unwanted felons away from them. So, I mean, Jan Brewer is a courageous lady. Well, okay, it's Monday, and it's the 700 Club, and Lee Webb has the first of our top stories in the CBN Newsroom. Lee.
Pat, the fourth heat wave of the summer is forecast for this week with sizzling temperatures over 100 degrees, high humidity, and more of those severe storms. Ephraim Graham has the story.
Heat advisories are in effect for 13 states from the plains to the East Coast today. Forecasters say temperatures will reach the triple digits at least through midweek. And as those temperatures approach, severe storms tore across several states last night. 2 men are dead in Texas after running for cover during a soccer match.
I heard what sounded like a bomb go off, and I looked to my left, and I could see the lightning strike hit the top of the tree, go all the way down and disperse on the ground.
In other states, the sudden storms caused flooding. Parts of Connecticut got 4 inches of rain overnight. Still, much of the country remains in a terrible drought. The heat wave only making those conditions worse. Disaster areas have been declared in more than 1,000 counties and 26 states, making it the largest natural disaster area in U.S. history.
This is about as bad as I've seen. 2012 is going to be probably going to surpass any of those and be the biggest historic event that we have.
Farmers in the disaster areas now have access to federal aid. Half of the nation's pastures and ranges are in poor or very poor condition, according to the Drought Monitor.
I assume someday it will rain, but we're running out of time.
And as the drought continues, more and more crops are being destroyed, setting the stage for higher food prices.
All of the stuff is pretty much burned up. We've had to buy the stuff, import produce in. Had to do a lot of watering to try to keep things from dying and increase prices. Just made it real difficult.
Corn crops are among those hit the hardest. A percentage of the nation's corn is used to make ethanol, which is used to make gasoline. This could mean that as food prices increase, the price at the pump may rise as well. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
And the drought is also affecting local food banks and community kitchens. Organizers say they're all but out of fresh local produce. Farmers usually donate their extra crops, but this year, Pat, they say they just don't have anything to give.
Lee, you know, I was thinking about this, you know, you don't have corn, you don't have wheat and so forth. So people who raise cattle, people who raise horses are going to find it hard to get cattle feed and horse feed. People who feed poultry, they use grain, you know, to feed the poultry. And if the grain is down, we're going to have to pay more for poultry. So there'll be shortages of beef, shortages of poultry, shortages of eggs, and then shortages of regular produce, not to mention the cost of bread. I was shocked. I went to a grocery store the other way in Terry. They wanted almost $5 for a loaf of bread. Yeah. $5.
Is that a new adventure for
you? It used to be 11 cents. Now it's $5.
I know. It's not. Nowadays you can go to the store, spend almost $100 and not have much to show for it.
I got the cheap kind of bread that was $1 cheaper.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. I'm a value shopper. But honestly, I mean, we haven't begun to see what would happen, and we've never had really food shortages. But you go back to the times of the Dust Bowl when everybody had to pull up from Oklahoma. They went west out to California, the so-called Okie migration. It was suffering beyond belief. Would we have something like that again? I don't know. But we've got to look after Mother Nature. We have to look after this planet we're living on. It's very important. And, you know, you can sell everything you want to about extremism, and I don't want to be an extremist, but we have to care for this planet. God gave it to us to nurture and to care for, and it will sustain us if we look after it. Lee?
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton met with Egypt's new Islamist president this weekend. Mohammed Morsi, who was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood until he was elected, the head of Egypt's military warned after meeting with Clinton that he won't let the Brotherhood dominate the country. Clinton also met with Christian leaders and with women, and she urged Egypt to protect their rights. Clinton also brought up the case of 2 Americans who've been kidnapped in Egypt. One is the pastor of a Boston Pentecostal church. 61-year-old Reverend Michael Luis was pulled off a tour bus on the road to Mount Sinai, along with a female church member and an Egyptian tour guide. The Boston Globe reporting that the pastor volunteered to be a hostage when the Egyptians tried to seize the woman. The pastor's son told reporters his family is, quote, in good spirits because we know that the God we serve is in control of the matter.
Concern that we have at the moment is that he is diabetic, and the longer they hold him, I want to assume that it's not going to work in his favor. We just want to thank everybody that's involved and concerned, and we ask that everybody pray for not only the safe return of Reverend Michael Lewis, but the safe return of everybody that is also with him.
Lewis's church takes a trip to Israel every year, but this time their tour bus crossed into Egypt. This is the third time this year American tourists have been kidnapped in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. Democrats in Washington standing firm in their plan to raise taxes on upper-income Americans. President Obama has said he won't go along with any plan to keep President Bush's tax cuts for families making more than $250,000 a year. Democrats want to keep the tax rates only for the middle class, but Republicans want to save the lower tax rates for higher-income Americans as well as small businesses. The Bush tax cuts are set to expire at the end of this year, and many analysts believe a failure to reach a deal by then could seriously hurt the economy. Pat?
They talk about the cliff, going over the cliff, and are the Democrats willing to push us over the cliff? You know, what we've talked about before is the way the tax code works is that a business can operate under what's called a subchapter S exemption, which means that the business does not pay corporate taxes, but the money flows through to the proprietor, and he or she pays individual taxes and gets, of course, if there are losses, gets tax deductions. Now, these people, I mean, a business could generate, I mean, $1 million is not a big deal with a business, and yet Obama calls people like that rich. And yet they have employees, they have expenses, they have all these things, but on a subchapter S tax filing, it'll look like they've got $1 million in income, and then they take it on down. This war, this class war that the Democrats are involved in, it just isn't smart. And if they bring us to a cliff and run us over the cliff and run us into a recession, and this is what I felt the Lord telling me at the beginning of last year, is that the United States does not have the political will to do what's needed to curb the deficit and to stop the wasteful spending and to bring this economy under control. And absent that, we are in desperate financial shape. It won't be long before other nations say we will not loan you money except at exorbitant interest rates. We'll be like Spain, like Greece, like Italy. And it will not be pretty for any of us. You think this drought's bad, well, wait till that hits. And you just should pray that somehow reason would prevail and that there would be some kind of compromise. But the idea is that a compromise means you do it my way. That's not compromise.
More than 1 million evangelical Christians marched for Jesus in Brazil Saturday. It was all part of the annual March for Jesus in Sao Paulo. Hundreds of believers from Protestant and non-denominational churches participated in the annual event. The march organized by the Reborn in Christ Church and included music and inspirational messages. Organizers say the march was the largest Christian event in the world. Christianity is the fastest growing religious segment in Brazil. The first and only Christian television station is now on the air in Niger, Africa. CBN's country director helped spearhead that project. The station currently broadcasts 3 hours a day and features the French version of the 700 Club as well as the French version of the Superbook series. The goal? To be on the air 24 hours a day. About 30% of the population in Niger owns a television and that can reach and get those broadcasts. Viewers are already responding positively to CBN's programming. We're glad to hear that. And you can find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by logging on to cbn.com/international.